Next item on the agenda for tonight will be AMB Portview Commerce Center, 622-668 Dowd Avenue, application number Z2612.
Chairman, board members, Stephen Hale from AMB and the applicant, AMB Portview Commerce Center LLC. Seeking for variances associated with proposed signage. This project was approved by this board last year for the FedEx facility. It's a beautiful new facility if you've been by it. Unfortunately, at the time that we applied for the project, the signage was not finalized, and we're back here for a variance. The reason we need a variance, our clients, our witnesses will explain in detail, is that based upon the zoning applicable, the signage zoning that's applicable, the signage for this size facility, which is a very large building, the building is 152,000 square feet, the site is very large, it's 12 acres. Signage is zone simply not feasible as far as people to see where the location is, and also to see the site, the way the building is placed on the lot. Signage is important for the whole location. So that's a walk into the micro. Based upon you'll see based upon the submissions and testimony, we believe that the variances should be granted by the board. I'd like to call upon my first witness, if there's no preliminary questions from the board, call upon Prologis, representative of the applicant.
Stand up, please. Join in. You both do solemnly swear the testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. Anthony Alvarado, 320, works for the plan for New Jersey.
Could you state your name, by your name, and your address?
Sure. Take all you take it off. Alright, yeah, that's I wanted to be honest. So my full name is Dowd Avenue, DOT, and I work for Prologis, Prologis, and I'm vice president for Prologis.
Do you have an address?
We do have an address. It's 1 Meadowlands Plaza, Suite 100. It's in East Rutherford, New Jersey.
Mr. Farkas, if you could personally indicate to the board your involvement in this project and a little background on the construction here.
Yeah, sure. I've been involved in this project since 2004. That's when we first started forming a joint venture with Estival. And since then, obviously, we've built the 2 buildings. They're 100% leased, both buildings are 100%. And just as Steve stated earlier, we built the FedEx building. We started around May and June last year, and they moved in May of this year. And they're fully operational at this point.
And if you could please explain, and we know the professionals here to address it, but why the signage that's proposed is important and the reason for it.
Sure, yeah, there's a couple of reasons. One of them is, this is one of, actually it's probably top 2 or top 3 facilities for FedEx in the United States for their air cargo. And on top of that, typically when they deliver to homes versus businesses, and even businesses if you're not there, typically for a pickup or you have to go to FedEx facility, you go to this facility. So, you know, I don't live in Elizabeth, but I live in Hudson County. So I know in the past when I've gotten packages, I had to come over here, and without the signage, a lot of public when they're picking up packages have problems finding the facility.
And you reviewed the proposed signage, and this is acceptable both to your company and to FedEx?
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
And is the signage important continued viability and functioning of this site?
Yeah, well, the signage is pretty important from a customer service. I think FedEx, most of these large companies, just like we do, we all do, the customers are who pay the bills, and customer service is number one. I know for FedEx is top priority, so it's important from that perspective.
And the signage, and your professionals are explaining the details proposed. I'm sorry that we permitted the ordinance is simply not sufficient. Is that the case?
Yeah, that is the case. And I'm sure the other guys will testify. In general, for the size of the building and the signage that's proposed, it's basically what fits into the realm of these types of buildings that have been built.
Thank you. I have no further questions of Mr. Marcus at this time.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any questions?
Thank you. I'd next like to call upon Scott Murrow.
Raise your right hand, please. You solemnly swear the testimony you're giving is the truth and nothing but the truth. I do. Have a seat, state your name, spell your name, give your address, please.
My name is Scott. Sounds good. My name is Scott Murdoch. That's SCOTMURDOCH. I work with KSS Architects out of Princeton, New Jersey. Address 337 Witherspoon Street.
And Mr. Murrow, you did testify before this board in connection with the previous applications?
Yes, I've been testifying on this board since the inception.
Great, thank you. If you could briefly describe you have a number of exhibits here, the proposed signage.
Sure. So the first exhibit I'd like to show will be a site plan, which we'll get to in a little bit, but depicts the original building 1 as well as the building that we're discussing right now for FedEx.
Okay, if you could please mark that as A1 with today's date.
Yes, sir. A1. The next sign I'd like to, or next exhibit would be a series of building elevations depicting the 4 elevations of the building with enlarged elevations where the signs occur. We'll call that A2. And then the third exhibit, which is a detailed site plan showing additional signage information, we will label as A3. Briefly, I'd like to focus on the building elevations. As you can see, these depict the 2 short ends of the building and then the 2 long ends. This loading dock side faces the, I guess it's the east of the site. This is the primary elevation facing building 1, which is the west elevation. And then there's the north elevation, which is the closest to Dowd Avenue, with the south elevation being in the rear. As you can see, the scale of these buildings, the signs are quite appropriately scaled. The larger of the 2 small signs is 5 foot by roughly 17 foot in size, and that sits high on the north corner in order to be missed by the existing building that would obscure it if it were lower. And then there's a smaller sign depicting the customer entrance, which is effectively 2'5" by just under 6 feet. And so a total of roughly 14 square feet for the small sign and only 85 square feet for the larger of the 2 small signs.
Did you say 75 square feet?
85.
And what type of signs will these be?
It'll be illuminated box signs so that they're visible during all hours of the day.
And as you indicated, from an architectural standpoint, you find the signs are appropriately sized for the building and also based upon the location of the building?
I do. I think they fit very appropriately, both from a scale perspective as well as from a location perspective, to make them truly functional.
Thank
Vice Chairman Copeland.
I'm not sure if you're the one they asked about it or not. You said it's an illuminated sign. How bright are we talking as far as illumination goes? I mean, it's going to get somebody... I'm sorry, Fred. Can you maybe give me a little more detail on the illumination of the sign? How bright?
The illumination will not be, I would say, I don't have an exact foot candle level in all honesty, but the illumination is not such that it would cause any distraction to drivers. It would not be glaring, create off light, or a glaring factor that would obscure visibility from someone looking at the sign. It's just enough that, as you can see, the letters are purple and blue, or purple and orange. So that is a very diffuse light, and being that they're illuminated from within, they more or less glow almost like a soft Christmas light, if you will.
I figured that, but I just wanted to hear from you, put it on record. So you don't need a pair of sunglasses to look at the sign?
No, sir.
And it's going to be a stationary sign. It's not going to be blinking, flashing in any way?
No,
Just
sir.
for the record?
It's a static illuminated sign.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioners? Any other questions? Seeing none.
Next, I'd like to briefly comment upon our professional planner, that's strong.
You do solemnly swear that testimony you're giving will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Have a seat, please. Name and address for the record. Spell your name. You can pull it right out of the screen.
My name is Beth Strom, B-E-T-H, capital S-T-R-O-N, and I work with Menlo Engineering, and they were the engineering firm that first showed the plan to the board back in 2011. Yes, my address is 25 Carson Avenue, Metuchen, New Jersey.
And if you could please give the board the benefit of briefly your work, educational experience in the area of expertise when you testified before this or other boards.
Yes, I am a professional planner and licensed landscape architect in the state of New Jersey. I've been with Menlo Engineering in that capacity since the year 2000, and I have a BS in landscape architecture from Rutgers University, and I have my planning license by examination since the year 2000.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Strom, you've heard my opening statement, the testimony of Mr. Farkas, and also the testimony of Mr. Murdoch of the exhibits. And from a planning standpoint, if you could please provide justification for the signage variance associated with this application.
Yes, I can certainly do that. As you will know, this board granted a use variance to this application previously, and the board found at that time that the building would in fact revitalize the area and that it is consistent with the neighborhood and would cause no detriment to the zone plan. The variances which have been assigned were done so because the zoning officer applied the commercial sign criteria rather than the industrial manufacturing criteria. As has been stated, this is the manufacturing, the MRC zone, manufacturing, research, and commercial. And if the manufacturing criteria had been applied, it would in fact be in compliance. But as such, we do have the three variances for the under the commercial criteria. The first being that the number of signs permitted for frontage is 1, whereas we are proposing 2. The second is that the permitted sign height from the ground is 14 feet, whereas 15 feet is proposed from the western elevation, and 34 feet 8 inches is proposed from the northern elevation, which is the elevation most visible from Dowd Avenue. And the final variance under the commercial criteria is that the maximum sign box height is 2 feet, whereas 3 feet is proposed for the western elevation, and 5 feet is proposed for the northern elevation. As the board well knows, the criteria or the arguments that must be advance for the C variances in this case under the New Jersey statute 4055 D70C, so-called 4055 D70C, the so-called flexible C or C2 strictures under the municipal land use law. There is no hardship here, however, under the MLUL, the arguments can be advanced and the granting of a variance can be found by the board if the property, if the variance is related to a specific piece of property, if it furthers the purposes of the municipal land use law, if the benefits of granting this can be done so without any detriments, and if they can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good or substantial impairment to the intent and purpose of the zone plan. At this site in particular, and with this building signage, one sign is proposed per facade, one on the northern side and one on the western side. So it is in fact in compliance with the intent, if not the letter of the ordinance, in terms of the number of signs. The height of the signs is placed at the optimum height for visibility. Traveling down the Dowd corridor, it is imperative that at the height of this building, which is 37 feet, that the sign be visible. In itemizing the square footage of the facade and proportion of the sign to the facade, doing the calculations along the northern elevation, which is facing Dowd, the 85 square feet is in fact 0.8% of the 9,620 square feet facade. Along the western elevation, it is in fact less than that as a proportion. The 14.245 square feet is 0.07% of that 19,245 square foot facade. So obviously it's significantly lower as a percentage to what is customary for this type of facility. The 14-foot height is a requirement that is more appropriate for a commercial sign. And as was pointed out by Mr. Murdoch, sign B, which is the sign which faces Dowd, needs to be visible, and the height is placed to that degree because of other buildings that would be in their way otherwise. So this really promotes motorists trying to orient themselves rapidly to discern where the site is and not have to double back. It's critical from a safety and legibility perspective, and it ensures motorist safety in getting to the destination. It would stand to reason with a building and property this large that signs need to orient and direct visitors and need to be legible and in scale with the building. And as such, the purposes of the municipal land use law 4055 D2 that are furthered by this application are purpose A, to encourage municipal action to guide appropriate development or use of all lands.
To encourage municipal action.
To guide the appropriate use or development of all lands in this state in a manner which would promote the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. Purpose G, to provide sufficient space in appropriate locations for a variety of commercial and industrial uses to meet the needs of all New Jersey citizens. And in this case, purpose H, to encourage the location and design of transportation routes which would encourage the free flow of traffic while discouraging the location of facilities and routes which would result in congestion or blight. The signs are well designed, they are consistent with similar signage in the vicinity, they enable visitors to locate and enter the building correctly without requiring doubling back or any other safety hazards, and this promotes general welfare and safety. As to the negative criteria, the proposal must not present substantial detriment to the public good or must not impair the intent or purpose of the zone plan. As to the first prong, no variance should be granted that would cause substantial detriment to the public good. Signage does not do so. It is appropriate in scale. It is a simple, clean design which does not distract visually from the Dowd Avenue corridor. It provides safety and identification benefits to drivers attempting to access access this location. And the purpose of the sign really is to reduce any potential detriments to traffic hazard and confusion to motorists, which the signage would do. As to the second prong, no variance would impair the intent or purpose of the zone plan. In reviewing the manufacturing criteria for signage, had that been applied, the signage would be in compliance. Given that the zone and development of the area is more consistent with an industrial than a commercial context, I believe that this proves that there is no impairment of the zone plan or ordinance. It is, in fact, in manufacturing and research and commercial zone. In the City of Elizabeth's master plan in 2005, it was published that one of the goals would be to improve truck access and circulation to avoid conflicting vehicular movements. So in addition to transportation routes, adequate signage is important to ensuring adequate access and avoiding conflicting vehicular movement. So in my estimation, both the positive and negative criteria have been met for these, all three of these variances. And on balance, the granting of these would not cause substantial detriment to the public good or to the intent and purpose of the zone plan.
Thank you. I have no further questions at this time.
Commissioners? Any questions? Seeing none?
We have no further witnesses this evening.
Are there any members of the audience that wish to testify for or against this application? Please step forward one at a time and state your name. Seeing none? Commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I think this is an easy, simple application. I understand that the number of signs that are allowed for this type of structure is only one. I don't see any problem with two. I actually appreciate that that expresses in our city. So I don't have any problem. I'm in favor of this application.
Mr. Chairman?
Vice Chairman?
I concur with my colleague. I don't think two signs is asking too much. Consider the signs to be actually kind of classy. They're not going to be bright, shining in one's face. It'll complement the building and identify the building. And I too am in favor of this application.
Anyone else? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve this application as presented by the applicant.
Commissioner Castro? Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Dixon. Madam Secretary?
Vice Chairman Pablo?
Aye.
Commissioner Hernandez?
Aye.
Commissioner Castro?
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Aye.
Commissioner Eaton? President Dixon? Chairman Neely?
Aye.
Thank you very much, and I'm sure everyone is safe and happy holidays.